City of Stevens Point Police and Fire Commission meeting, recorded October 3, 2023.
Police and Fire Commission. First thing on the agenda is roll call. Candy, please call the roll.
Kirschling.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Rosick. Here. Ostrowski.
Here.
Zenner.
Here.
Excellent. Everybody's present and accounted for. Item number 2 is the President's report, and I really don't have a lot to say, so I will not bore you with anything. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes from last month's meeting. Anyone?
Mr. President, I make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Kirschling, second.
You've got all sorts of seconds, and we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 4, confirmation of the bills. Mr. Ostrowski, please.
All righty, looking at the ambulance bill and the first one, the only thing that stands out, of course, is the yearly 50% for Lexipol at $6,000. Overall, their budget's running tight, but it's in line. Fire department, very similar. The one that stands out is the other half of Lexipol's annual expense at $6,000. Other than that, the monthly bills are fine. The overall budget looks in trouble, but it's not, because there is some capital stuff in there that will be taken out later, and it'll become, the operation will be fine. Chief has assured me that the operational is right on target. Going to the police department, the ones I'd like to point out is the new dog is the major share of the bills for the month, between handler and the dog and time away training. But a lot of this is being covered by funds donated.
All of it's being funded by donations.
Yeah. So overall, the police department budget is running fine, and yearly it's running also very good. With that, I would move to accept the bills as submitted.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second by Morozek.
We have a second from Morozek. Do we have questions or comments about the budgets? Nothing
Bills.
from the commission. Anybody? Bills. Thank you. Anyone in the audience? Any questions or comments? Excellent. All in favor of approving the bills for this month, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 5, discussion and action, possible action on final revisions to the policies and procedures for the Police and Fire Commission. Attorney Beveridge, please come to the podium. Okay.
Just want to note we have had this posted up on the front page of the city website for comments for about a week now, and I have not received any, nor have I had any forwarded to me by any of the other recipients that were listed there on the posting we did about it. So would encourage the passage of them in their current form.
Very good. I will open it up to the commission that if you have concerns, comments, additions, editings, anything, please bring them up now so we can hopefully put this to bed.
I just had that one addition, section 1.04 for new members of the commission, to have something, because we're at, it states at a minimum what we will provide each new member. I think it also needs to include in there the administrative setup, because for your email, for your pay, I mean, they're having commissioners on here who, you know what I mean, months in, didn't even know that, like, you're supposed to keep track of your meetings, you're supposed to be submitting them in, you know, that whole process. It's kind of one of those things that it's hit or miss, so I don't know if we can just, in a nutshell, say administrative setup at a minimum, because that's what we should be providing each
She's
commissioner.
referring to the email setup, the city email, the fact that we supposedly get reimbursed or paid for this particular commission, and what was the other thing?
Well, I think,
Was there-
right, I would just like something with the admin side of it, that at a minimum, we should be providing that.
Some job entry and description.
Sure. I guess my first thought is, if that was somehow missed with anyone, obviously that's not great. But it's not like, I can't imagine that at the time that was missed, that the people involved in that consulted this document, and for its lack of inclusion in there is why that was missed, if you see what I'm getting at. So I'm not sure that putting language in here to that effect is the solution that you need to that type of issue coming up.
Well, I think it is, because of the fact that if you're going to be on this, you should be reading this. And this is, you know what I mean? It should clearly outline it, and it's what, 2 more words, administrative setup?
If you would like to include those words, you certainly can. There's nothing wrong with putting those in there.
I mean, like I said, I definitely think that anyone who comes on here, they're being supplied, right? They should be reading this. They should be reading.
I don't know that administrative setup is really going to explain 5 years from now. I don't know that anybody would know what that means.
I mean, if we want to be real,
Well, the better specific, this is the kind of document that if you're specific in it, it's better because it's more clear, because these are the things that historically keep moving on when all of the rest of us are no longer here to answer these questions. So that's why.
I mean, I would maybe,
It would
I don't
be
know,
better.
however, if we wanted to word it, because basically it's the email set up with the city. It's the, I guess, reimbursement, the counting of your meetings, things like that. So I don't know, I mean, you're the expert on the words, so how you want to put that, but. I mean, I can tell you for myself, there was another, since I've been on here, there's been 2 commissioners who, 3-4 months in, didn't even know that.
Well, I mean, again, it just, we could spend 500 words explaining that in here. Does it address the concern that you're talking about? Because, you provide somebody, well, I don't need to belabor that point, but I guess, if we're going to include something like that, I'd rather have something that, like Jerry mentioned, that is a little more detailed. Administrative setup, I think, if anything, I can tell you if I just saw.
An onboarding packet that maybe we just, that's where, with the record supervisor, that they get that information over to them. I mean, something that's going to trigger, hey, I need to be doing something more here.
How about just information regarding the provision of a city email account and details on reporting of meetings and compensation, something like that.
Yep, works.
How about literally what I just exactly
Yep.
said,
That works.
which we can consult the tape later on. Okay. I think that'll work just fine.
Okay,
I'd like to address 1.06, department liaisons, the first bullet point.
okay, hold one second.
Okay.
Because we're going out of order in some ways, but I want to go back to 1.03, which is on page 5. Under for purposes determining, down there, it has a comment, compensation is paid in a minimum block of 4 hours with the actual time spent whichever is greater. We have no hourly pay, so I'm not sure what the purpose of that sentence is for. And I would suggest that we strike that.
All right, you're going to have to forgive me. I don't have a copy of it in front of me at this instant, and our internet in here is not exactly the easiest thing to use. All right, thank you. So you're looking at the language under 1.0 which?
1.03. It's in the second paragraph, down about five sentences down. Compensation is paid in a minimum block of 4 hours or the actual time spent, whichever is greater. We don't get paid by the hour. So if we just strike that statement, that entire sentence out of there.
Okay, if there's notes, I'll just give it back to you.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. I'm kind of surprised that we hadn't noticed that earlier.
Joe, where would you like to go after that?
1.06.
Does anybody disagree with striking that? No.
Oh, that
Okay.
sounds good. 1.06, page 6, the first bullet point, meet with chiefs at least monthly. There's times where I meet with the chiefs or talk to them multiple times a month, and then there's some times where there is a period of time, I'm not going to say exactly, it's not months and months, but what I would like to see instead of meet is communicate, because I don't need to come and meet with the chief every month. If we can have a phone call of what's going on, how are things going, do you need any assistance, that can happen in 5 minutes.
I just wanted to jump in with a question right now.
Sure.
So we've obviously had quite a series of meetings about this. We've gone through each one of these sections in detail. Last month, we presented a complete document. Everybody here seemed comfortable with it. The idea was to put it out to the public for possible comments and then have action now. I don't have any issue whatsoever with making changes to it, obviously. But if we're going to have quite a few changes, which it's kind of feeling that way, perhaps what we should be thinking here then is, okay, do we want to have this on the agenda again for next month? And do you guys want to get me some comments in writing? Because I just get nervous about trying to do drafting of language on the fly via a tape recorder. That gets sloppy. If it's one or two small isolated things, but I get real nervous if we go beyond that.
I don't disagree. I think that if we go through this now, we can hammer out most of it right now.
I agree.
I don't think there's going to be that many more. I know I only have like one other thing, and it's totally a typo that's not that important.
I just have one too, so that's.
So go ahead, Mr. Zenner. I agree with Joe. That's fine. Does everybody agree with Joe?
Yep.
Me,
Communicate.
change that to communicate. I'm good with that.
And Logan, we brought this up, I think it was a couple months ago, but it was, again, just an oversight on it, on section 3.04, addressing non-represented personnel. It has the chief and assistant chiefs. We need to add the battalion chiefs as they're non-represented also.
We, discussion on that,
I know where.
we will have to then add as well division chiefs.
A battalion and division.
Right.
Correct. So in the fire
Division
department,
chiefs?
and we would have to add our deputy fire marshal as well. Those are all non-represented employees in the fire department.
And I think when we talked 2 months ago on that, Logan, I don't know if we were looking to kind of change the language, because then anytime another position gets created or moved to a non-rep, we're going to have to update that. Is there some kind of language we can do that just encompasses?
Well, I think with regards to that, I don't think we need to plan ahead for those types of events, because those are pretty uncommon.
Okay.
You know, if we have, once or twice a decade that we make some sort of change like that, I think we can just remember that we need to have a commensurate item on the agenda to address language in these policies at that time.
Okay.
Do we have any other changes in this document that we wanted to make?
You said you had something.
Just one more, but I was waiting, because mine's way at the end. I was just waiting to kind of get there in case anybody else had something else that they want to throw at it. Page 18. out of 19. Under section 6.03, it literally is a typographical error in the second sentence where it says, "Department motor vehicle will notify the chief writing anytime," in writing anytime.
You said that's section 16.03?
6.03,
6.
page 18.
That's on the first sentence?
Second
Second.
sentence.
Second row. First thing.
Just the spacing is incorrect on, correct the typographical error in the second sentence.
You want to repeat what you were referring to, Jerry?
Yeah, I see it.
Chief in writing anytime.
Second line.
Second line.
Yeah, second line right about in the middle. Don't mean to be too picky, but it seems we're changing things and correcting them.
Oh, there it is, okay.
It's a search word. Does anyone else have any other corrections or changes to this document at this time?
I guess the only thing I would ask Chief Moody is on page 19, I don't know if you can look at those. Section 6.04, property, number 2. It says employees of the police and fire departments are not permitted to use city-owned facilities or equipment for their own personal use. Wouldn't that be in, I mean, if we look at facilities, isn't that kind of in, because my understanding is with the union, and I know this would affect you more, that they do have downtime, that they're using the facility, right, to,
For their own personal use, yes.
so, I mean, that's what I'm saying, are we basically a contradiction because of what a union contract states in there?
Well, I don't believe there's anything in the union contract that would contradict that.
So do you feel comfortable leaving that? But I guess
Denise,
I know
which,
it affects your department specifically.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think the idea there is that that's with the permission of management.
Yeah, so I think what we're looking at there is the permission of the management staff, but also when it talks about the facilities, it's the 2 stations and the equipment within those stations, apparatuses and equipment like that, are not to be used for personal use. It's not saying that, I mean, I guess we could argue it both ways to say that, an individual can work on personal things within the department on their personal time, or their downtime, but to say that they're going to say we're going to use a fire truck for personal use, I think that's what it's the more intent of the language is.
Photocopy, or things like that.
Right.
I mean, as long as, I just wanted to just point this out, as long as you're comfortable with it. 'Cause
And that's been in there.
Okay,
That's nothing new.
okay.
And I guess we'll look at, kind of our past practice within the fire department. We haven't had issues with it. And I think we can continue to leave it there. And if it becomes a problem in the future, then I feel we need to address it at that time.
Okay.
Well, I think another thing there is, in the context of a fire service, the definition of personal use within that section there, it does take context into account, which is that, does it seem like personal use to be cooking lunch in the kitchen? Maybe, sort of, but when you're a 24/7 service, that's part and parcel with what a shift as a firefighter includes. Now, if a member of the service showed up down there on their day off to use the kitchen, maybe that'd be a little bit different. But I think the intent here is pretty clear.
all right, is there any other additions, editing that needs to be done, changes? Then I guess what I would like to see is if you take this and make those changes. We bring it back next month for a final vote on that copy, and we'll go from there. Is that?
That works, and I would highly, highly encourage any of you, if you're going through it again and you come up with something, don't wait till the meeting to contact me about it.
Yeah, let's
I can
get
do it
the
ahead of time.
changes before we get
Yes.
it back for the vote. If anyone has any other changes. Liaison to the council, did anyone from the council want any changes in this document or make any comments?
I think they're just leaving all of that to you guys and
Thanks.
the group to review.
Okay, it's good. I just wondered if anybody contacted you or not and wanted to give you an opportunity to pass that on.
Thanks, yeah, no, I haven't heard anything from anybody else.
Very good. Then we'll put it on the agenda for next month for a final vote and hopefully put this thing to bed.
And who knows, maybe we'll get some comments from the public over the next however long.
Very good.
If we do, I will let all of you know as we receive those, so that
Very
we can
good.
get input on them sooner rather than later.
All right. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Discussion with possible action on approval of the 2024 operational budget for the police department. Chief.
Yes. So I've got a new form that's in front of you that Candy put in your packet, because this has changed several times in the last couple months. But based on the comptroller's recommendation, we are probably going to receive a 0% increase in operational budget. But the good news is that we are getting our $5,000 back, which we gave to the city for 2023 raises. So we are going to be receiving that back. The other good news on the budget is that the reimbursement by the state for part of our training, next year they're going to be increasing that. We normally get $160 per officer, full-time officer, sworn status, and they're going to be increasing that to $320. So that should give us an additional approximate $7,000 as well. I'll kind of go through the line items, and what I'm looking for is the approval of this, so I can actually get this to Comptroller Laddick and to Carrie. We've been working on it together, so they're both well aware of what's going on here. If you go down to the police department on the wages, I put that in blue. The reason I put that in blue is that's obviously dependent upon what the city or the council approves for raises. So that is dependent. I did have to find money for our flock cameras, which have been an incredible, incredible success for us here at the Stevens Point Police Department. And so in order to do that, the $5,000 that they originally took from us came out of the crossing guards' wages. We've actually had our CSO covering one of the areas for our crossing guards. And so I'm going to get $15,000 out of that account, and that still leaves us with $27,575, which is more than we've actually used in the last 3 years for those wages. If you go to the next page, on the very top, it says software licensing fees. That's where the majority is actually going to be placed into. I'm adding a total of $17,000 to that to make that $60,000. And that is what our flock cameras will come out of next year. General services. So one of the things I've learned over the last 2 years is we have a category called general services and miscellaneous. We have been educated on what goes in which one now. And so on that one, I'm actually going to be increasing that to $7,500. And as you see, we have $16,000 out of there right now. That is extremely high, but that is a one-time payment for the Hakes Wellness, where we implemented the wellness program where every single officer is going to meet once a year, and then sensitive crimes will meet twice a year to make sure that mentally everybody is doing as good as they are physically. I don't know if you want me to go through every single tier. When you look at TASER equipment, it's a little bit further down. I actually took out $4,000 from there. In our capital budget, we are requesting money from the council. We got it approved through here. and then the mayor and comptroller approved it. It's going to be going to committees and council here. And the things that we requested were body cameras, squad cameras, and taser equipment. And so realistically, if that capital goes through on the approval of the council, that $5,000 budget, I don't even need at all. It's a 5-year contract. They will cover everything, all the damages, replacement costs, and then halfway through the cycle at 2.5 years, they replace every single piece of equipment. And so I'm leaving $1,000 in there and taking $4,000 from there. Right below that, I'm leaving it as is for the camera equipment. And the reason I'm leaving that as is at $7,000. And if this does pass the capital, again, the camera equipment, that is actually for our squad cams and body cams. That is another 5-year contract as well. And everything is covered and warranted, and so I really don't need that either. But at this point, I'm not really sure if the city's going to come back to us and say, you know, instead of a 0% increase in operational, or increase, a 0% operational lift or even, that you have to make a cut somewhere. So I'm leaving some of these things in here, so if I do have to make a cut, I've got it available to me to make that cut. Ammo supplies, I am putting an additional $3,000 in there just because the prices have actually skyrocketed, and that's one of the very, very important aspect of law enforcement, is to make sure that we stay qualified and up on our training for that. At the very bottom, for educational compensation, I am adding $2,000 back to that to make it $5,000. I'm very happy to say that we have 2 individuals here that are continuing on with their education now. One of them is Assistant Chief Williams, going for her bachelor's degree. And then we have J.D. Ballou, who's actually going for his as well. So I increased that back to $5,000 for the classes they're going to take. If you look at the total on the bottom, it comes to $534,844. That is exactly $5,000 over 2023's budget, which makes us on track because of the $5,000 that they're giving back to us. And then the very next one, the contracted building maintenance. We have $55,000 in there right now, and if you look at the last 3 years, we've never used $55,000. But if you look at the general building expenses and supplies, which is all of the products that are used in order to clean, that's actually going up. And so I'm just taking $5,000 from the building maintenance and putting it into the general building expenses and putting that down to $50,000. A lot of the big units we've gotten fixed here. We've gotten the roof done now, the entire roof. All the RTU units were actually not updated, but mechanically cleared this year. The RTU unit on the far east or west side was gutted and replaced. So a lot of the big things that we've actually needed since we moved here in 2017. Jeff Palms, our maintenance guy, has done a phenomenal job and has really gotten this building up and running well. So I do believe that part of the budget will go down eventually as well.
Very good.
Chief,
Anybody have any
go ahead.
questions? Yep, I was going to say, anybody have any questions?
I'm a little surprised that the insurance premium payment has gone down. Is there something that you did to make that go down? Because insurances everywhere are going up.
Well, the insurance premiums, I believe that's based on all of our fit tests and everything else like that. So the city actually sets that.
Okay.
And if you look at that, it's actually been down. It's been going down.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Tom, would you like to take this over next year?
No? Well, I got one on the flock. That's a pretty heavy expense on that. Is the city outside of the police department receiving any benefits? I mean, obviously, it's a benefit to the whole city, but specific to other departments that we could share that expense, I guess is where I'm going at.
Well, right now, Plover actually had purchased 10 flock cameras as well, so we each have 10. So we actually have this area covered very, very well. And you can actually give links to an agency to actually get on the flock cameras. One of the things we're working with is next year, hopefully, is to try to get a hold of some businesses, which we have one in the works right now that's talking about getting flock. because of some incidents that have happened there recently. But that's one of the things that Flock will do is if you can get a hold of a certain business on a certain corner, they can actually reach out to the business to see if they would like to actually pay for the camera. It's about $2,500 per camera. When you get them new installed, they're about $3,300.
Okay. Cool.
Is that a one-time expense?
It's a one-time expense for the installation, but then from that on, it's $2,500 a year.
Oh, so there is a fee every year.
Yep.
So you buy the equipment, but you rent the right to use it, is that basically?
Yep. And when anything goes wrong, they'll come and they actually, replace the camera and everything else. Everything's included. But they're license plate readers. And they have, I know Assistant Chief Rotier has been keeping track of all the successes we've had. I mean, to arson, where an individual started a fire down on Riverview, ended up locating a vehicle in the area at a certain time. We've had 2 missing juveniles out of Iowa. We got the license plate coming in through town. We ended up locating them. Lots and lots of warrants, individuals with warrants or wanted individuals. Escape prisoner. We just got an escape prisoner here who, you can call it an escape prisoner, but it's an individual that Stanley Correctional Facility actually accidentally let out.
Whoops.
And that's actually in my police officer's report. It's something where we actually located them and we had to back off due to the safety of the environment around and other residents. But after that, we had a plate, and so we entered that into Flock. And the minute he left his house, we got a hit. Our patrol officers got a hit immediately, stating that this car was on this road traveling this way. And our officers located it and took him down without incident this time. And that just happened two weeks ago.
Wow.
So.
Chief, how did you determine where to place these?
So that is actually all Detective Ken Lepak. Detective Ken Lepak is the one that really took the initiative to try to find this, because he works our white collar crimes and works with a lot of other agencies. And he found out a lot of other agencies that have these, it's been a true success. So he started pushing for it. And he came to all of us and said, this is something that we really need to get. It's an amazing thing. And so we used some funds last year, some government funds, and we actually were able to get it all installed. So last year was all paid for. And where I'm just keeping track of all the successes. So hopefully I can go to council in 3 years and say, listen, this is the successes. And I understand that we're probably going to get a 0% increase in operational budget, but I'm looking to get an increase of $28,000 in my software account to keep this implemented after 3 years.
I assume these can be relocated if necessary?
They can. Right now, they're at every single entrance and exit of the city. And on the east side, we've actually got it on both sides of the bridge. So if they come into town and they're traveling westbound and they turn north on the interstate, we can still get them on the east side. If they come into town, then we know that they hit both cameras and that they're actually in town at the moment that our cameras go off. So.
Could you just give a brief explanation of what these cameras are for? They're not for handing out speeding tickets or any of those other things, but just cover that for the public so they understand what the system is.
So the Flock camera is a license plate reader system. They are not used to identify even the individual in the car. They're actually identifying just the back of the vehicle and the license plate. That's all they will get is the license plate, or a type of vehicle with no license plate. If you put in there a black Ford pickup truck, it'll actually look for all the black Ford pickup trucks on any camera that you want to look at, or all of them, but it'll always show the back end of them. So it's not getting anybody's facial identification. It's not doing speeders or anything like that. It's totally an investigative tool, and we can only put plates in there or registrations of vehicles with a reason or a case number. So every single one that's entered has to have a case number and a reason to be in there. So it's no invasion of privacy or anything like that.
Also works for Amber Alerts and that kind of stuff too?
Yep, Amber Alerts. Anybody, the ones from Iowa, the missing children from Iowa, all they do is enter the plate. And as soon as that plate entered on the north side, every single one of our officers in a squad car on their MDCs, their mobile computers, received a hit that said, this is a picture of the car, this is the plate. It just entered on the north side, traveling southbound on Division Street. Our officers responded over there and located it. I want to say it was over by Maria, so that's how quickly it happened.
Very good. Any other questions we still have about the budget? This is our recommendation to the council. Do we have a motion? Anyone?
Do a motion to approve the operational budget presented by Chief Cousteau.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving right along. Agenda item number 7, Fire Chief's report, EMS report. Chief.
So this past month, we did have a academy graduation for our Deputy Fire Marshal / Emergency Management Coordinator Justin Malin and firefighter paramedic Jared Higgins. That was on September 8th. Then after 25 years with the Stevens Point Fire Department, Lieutenant Mark Schoberly has retired, and that's why you'll see some additional agenda items later on within the meeting to make sure we are moving forward within the department. DCI Fire Investigation and Fire Investigator Certification class has just been wrapped up this past week. DCI, along with the ATF and other individuals, come in and they've teamed up with the Stevens Point Fire Department to provide a 80-hour course in fire investigation, and it also holds a state certification and is the only one held in the state of Wisconsin annually, and we host it here in Stevens Point. Taco John's, we had a fundraiser here this past week, and the funds went towards technical rescue water equipment, both for ice water and for swift water rescue. I do not have a total on what was raised yet at that location for that event, but it was successful. We did host a National Fire Investigator Courtroom Testimony class, expert witness testimony class. We had individuals from around the nation here, including California, this past weekend, using our courtrooms and our department to better hone their skills in the courtroom. Also, would like to talk on the operational budget for 2024. This past week, like Chief Cousteau had said, initially we started with getting our $5,000 back that we had to give up in 2023, and we're expected to take a 3% increase. As of last Wednesday, we found out that that is not the case. We will be getting the $5,000 back to the departments, but we are going to be taking a 0% increase in our operational budget in 2024 as of right now. There has been talk already that potentially that will change as well. So unfortunately, finding out Wednesday what our actual budget was going to look like as a 0%, turning everything in by last Friday, I was able to redo the numbers in our operational budget. And when you're dealing with only about $5,000 that you're getting back and a 0% increase, there's not much to move around. But we did move $400 in our contracted radios and comm maintenance. We did decrease our membership dues by $2,000. We did decrease our mileage expenses by $500. We increased our general building maintenance and supplies by $500. We increased our general fire equipment by $1,600. Increased our personal fire equipment by $500. Again, learning about the miscellaneous expenses and learning over time with the operational account as a newer chief. We've increased that to $2,000. Public education has stayed the same, but our general seminars and education expenses went up $2,500. Again, we continue to send people to these classes. One important class that I'd like to bring up, we've actually partnered with Columbia Southern University and Mid-State Technical College. We had 2 members go to a company officer program in Iowa and came back and said it was life-changing in-house to understand the culture and how to be a leader in the fire service. We had another member, Justin Thompson, reach out and do some additional legwork on this program as well, working with DC Center. And we did partner with both, and we are bringing the program to the Midwest. More importantly, we're bringing it right here to Stevens Point. This program is being taught by the who's who in the fire service. We have New York Fire Department chiefs coming to teach this program that are going to be a part of it. They're expecting somewhere between 60 and 100 students for the 3-day company officer course. We are making it, we feel it's important, and we are going to make it mandatory for our company officers to go to that training, and we are going to provide backfill for them as well. And then we're also, and that'll be in January, and then in March of next year, we're going to send all the chief officers to a chief officer program that these same individuals are going to be teaching. So really honing that leadership and mentoring and succession planning within the fire department. So we did put some significant funding into our general education, general seminar and educational expenses for next year, knowing that that is going to be a big part of those expenses. Some minor changes also in a few other line items, but ultimately, again, this ends up only being a total of $5,000 that we're playing with in total. Another big change with this next year, when we talk about operational budgets for 2024, not only do we have the fire budget, we also have the EMS budget. We are currently in negotiations right now with the county, so we don't even know what those end dollars look like to be able to change that operational budget for 2024 yet. We are working with the comptroller's office, and we just sent out another proposal today, correct, Chief Gemza, to counter what the county had proposed, and we continue to move forward with that. So there are absolutely no numbers yet known for 2024 for the EMS operational budget. And then the last operational budget that we just took over this year, as many of you know, not only do we have a deputy fire marshal, but also the second part of that position is the EMS, or the EM emergency management coordinator position. So we have taken over the emergency management operational budget for the city of Stevens Point as well, starting in 2024. What I will tell you,
Chief, did the funding for that come with that position?
the funding for
The emergency management?
the stipend
Yes.
for the coordinator's position came with that. That is
Okay.
correct. And then on top of that, we sat down, and I think this is a great spot to introduce our emergency management coordinator to, when we talk about mentoring and succession planning, understanding an operational budget and starting out slow and steady. There is only $3,000 in the emergency management operational budget for the city of Stevens Point. So with that, there was a 0% increase again for 2024, and with that $3,000 to move around, we did increase the mileage expenses from $200 to $250. We had dropped the miscellaneous expenses by $625 and increased the general seminars and educational expenses by $575. The reason being is because we've already sent that employee to a PIO, a Public Information Officer program, and we are continuing to educate this individual and grooming them into being what the city wants as a new EM coordinator. So we felt the more important part of this was to really dump the education into this person over the next year. Again, it's only $3,000, but I'm also, when we have the opportunity and time allows, I'm definitely going to be trying to get more funding for this EM operational budget, because I don't think $3,000 in an operational budget for a city this size is appropriate for what we're trying to accomplish. So we are going to be working through that as well. With that being said, I cannot look for action or approval of an EMS budget when I don't have numbers, but I would be looking for the approval after some discussion on the fire operational budget and the EM operational budget, knowing that I potentially...
We can't do that today either, because they have to be a separate agenda item.
Okay.
It can't be under the chief's report, so we won't be able to do that today.
Okay. So I will be bringing that back next month, hopefully to have all 3 operational budgets completed.
Very good.
All right.
Chief, this EM coordinator will be a member of the fire department?
He is a member of the fire department. He's also our deputy fire marshal.
When this change occurred, that was decided by who?
The change in the operational budget?
No, the change in the location of the emergency manager position and how all of that evolved, because my knowledge is that was a person that was under the airport, working at the airport.
Correct.
And that was under the, taken care of by the water department?
Yes. Utilities and water, yep.
Okay, because we have nothing in our policies and procedures about an emergency management position or budgets or anything like that falling under the purview of the Police and Fire Commission. We have no job description, no notification, no authority or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just asking this because we just worked on the policies and procedures, and the city attorney didn't mention any of it or put any of it in there.
Well, and we had just asked about, as we flipped through the operational budget for 2023, looking forward to 2024, we actually just found this as well within the fire department itself. And so we then asked the comptroller's office, who is responsible for this operational account? And I was told, as the director of the department, that eventually that was then going to fall under the fire department itself. So that was just found out as of recent as well.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm not even clear that we have authority to make any decisions or conversation about their budget whatsoever, other than the fact that you were given this.
To operate.
And no one has said anything to us about it or given us any.
I will find out.
Instruction on how to deal with this, so that needs to be clarified. Another thing that would help us greatly is if you gave us a new flow chart of your department with all the new positions and changes, Chief.
Not a problem.
Thank you. What else is in the chief's report?
Okay. With that also, you'll see we've had many monthly trainings, including we've made it mandatory for some of our employees to go through the ICS 400 course. There's been several public activities on the fire side as well. And then we also sent forward the updated fire report that we had introduced last month for review. As you went through that, I was just going to ask if there was any questions, and then just point out again that the year-to-date changes is showing that we're already up on the EMS side as well as the fire side for call volume, the fire side being 15.4% already this year, projected at 21% increase overall for this next year. On the EMS side of the house, we're continuing to train. Again, that is one of our highest priorities within the department. And we just had the Field Training Paramedic Assessment Center held yesterday. Jennifer Petkoff went through that, and we will then next month be looking to for discussion and approval of her position to the appointment of a field training paramedic within our department. Again, the other thing I would like to add under the chief's report, one last thing, is our annual County EMS Award Banquet is going to be October 23rd at Memories in Plover. We've had several members nominated for different awards throughout this past year, and we're hoping to see many of them receive those awards coming up here later this month in October. That is it under the chief's report.
Do we have any questions for the chief? Comments, questions? Make a motion to accept the report, place it on file.
Kirschling, second.
Second by Kirschling. Any other questions, comments from anyone? No. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 8, police chief's report.
I'm going to start out with school coming into UWSP starting. We ended up having a lot of requests for new or more parking stalls. Lieutenant Johnson's been working with Director Badoon, and in Lot 2 and Lot 23, which are across from Chase Bank, and then the other one is near Edgewater Manor where it used to be. They were able to actually add 58 new parking stalls for income to the city, and all of those sold out before school even started. So it's a very good income base for the city right there with 58 new parking stalls. On the 10th of September, a lot of you are aware, some of you actually showed up. We had the Guns N' Hoses event up at Zenoff Park. We ended up raising $15,000. Again, the Guns N' Hoses is where the law enforcement versus the firefighters raised $15,000 to assist local veteran organizations here in town. It was a great event, and thank you for those that did come. On the 16th, Assistant Chief Williams and Officer Michael Schultz assisted with a Broad Fry fundraiser for the Lights of Christmas up at Festival, I believe, Festival or Metro Festival. And again, Lights for Christmas, that is an organization that gives us thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gift cards at Christmas time. And so when we pull somebody over, if they're in need of something, or if we come in contact with somebody that's in need of something, we can actually give them a gift card for possibly food, Walmart, or something like that. One of the success stories is an individual was stopped without a baby seat with the baby. She couldn't afford it. We took one of those gift cards and went to Walmart, purchased a baby seat for them for their vehicle, and installed it. So instead of putting her deeper and deeper into debt, it was actually just a really neat program that we were actually part of. And so Assistant Chief Williams went up and cooked some brats and sold some burgers. The other thing that Assistant Chief Williams did that was pretty cool with one of our officer, Christy Arns, they attended a lunch up at Midstate. It's a lunch for female criminal justice students at the academy, and it's students, it's for them to give them kind of a law enforcement perspective of females in this profession. And so her and Officer Christy Arns went up there and presented there for them and had lunch with them. Lieutenant Johnson Officer Radzik had a booth at the Fall Slips, Trips, and Falls Convention, which was put on by the ADRC. The event was sold out. 75 people attended that as well. And Assistant Chief Rotier assisted Midstate with the recruit interviews of the 720-hour Law Enforcement Academy for the Technical College. We actually hosted this week, or last week, we hosted the second full week of the Leadership in Police Organizations. And like I explained before, that's 39 students from all over Wisconsin that are in some type of leadership in law enforcement are coming here. They spend an entire week, and it's over 3 months. So it's 1 week a month for 3 months straight. So next month they'll do their last week here. They learn about leadership and different types of leadership styles, and trying to find out what maybe the core issue is, and fixing those issues. That's what they're learning in that. On that one, Officer Mike Schultz and Assistant Chief Williams, we have to provide lunch. We do get reimbursed for those lunches from the state, but they've done a phenomenal job providing lunch every single day for those 4 days for these weeks, and it's been very, very good food. They've done an incredible job. And this is not this month, or not last month, but this is this month. This Saturday, our Stevens Point Officers Organization is doing their annual steak feed up at Backwoods. The funds that are raised on there go to the Stevens Point Police Officers Organization, and they in turn donate to local charities here in the city.
Are there still tickets available?
There are tickets available still. Okay. I just want the calls for interest. We actually talked about it really quickly. So on the 23rd, on September 23rd, we ended up having information that there was an individual who was released from Stanley Correctional Institute, and they located him here in 2500 block of Neville Street. And to make a long story short, officers surrounded it, set up a perimeter, and the individual made threats about harming himself, coming out guns a-blazing. And one of the hardest things for law enforcement to do is to back out of a scene. But that was the best decision at that point. Again, it was a mobile home park, and so we felt it was best. He was the only one in the mobile home, and we weren't going to send an officer in, put them in danger. We weren't going to put a dog in there. It would have been just us sitting on them for a long time. We ended up entering their license plate or the registration of the vehicles that were there into Flock. And one of our sergeants, Sergeant Justin Klein, just 2 days later, was on his way home and ended up looking at the camera and seeing that vehicle. It got a hit. Ended up following that vehicle to Goodwill on the east side. And we had incredible response by the county and by our personnel. Responded out to the east side. They actually went into the store where that individual decided to, I believe it was take a knife and put his wife in between them and the officers, and then held the blade to his throat, threatening to kill himself. Officers were able to talk him down, and he was taken into custody and apprehended without incident. So I think it was just an incredible job by Portage County Sheriff's Department and our law enforcement working together with the tools that we've actually gotten because of all of you voting that we could get them. So the Stevens Point Auxiliary, they meet monthly, they do training, and they ended up raising a lot of money this summer, and one of the things that was requested by them was, since they are representing the Stevens Point Police Department at special events, is to wear armor. And so we actually had gotten several vests for them. They carry pepper spray or OC, but that's it. And obviously people at these events might think that they're officers. They're our eyes and our ears for us. And they go to them asking for help, or if they see something, they call us. They're via the radio. And so I thought it was a good idea. They're going to be wearing the vest underneath their polos. So it's not going to be on an exterior vest. It's not going to be on the outside, but it's just another form of protection. And those were actually purchased with some of the donations that we had received over the last year and a half for the auxiliary. And then, as you see on the last part of it, SPASH PJs and Ben Franklin is back in service. SPASH has 84 calls of service last month. PJ's had 62 calls for service, and Ben Franklin had 70 calls for service. And then the very last thing is the canine. We couldn't make our canine program work on its own, obviously because of the budget constraints. And we've got some incredible people that are stepping up throughout the community. And I think I was able to talk about this last time. But last month, the Jack Stand Car Club raised money throughout the entire summer, and they were actually able to give us, they donated $7,400 to our canines. They did the same for Portage County Sheriff's Department, and then half of that, of the $7,400, they actually donated to Plover. So they raised an incredible amount of money, $18,000 something over the summer. And as you're all aware too, we ended up getting a $5,000 donation from Steel King Industries, who actually decided to name our dog Koi. And it was named Koi because they're building their new world headquarters on Koi Avenue in our industrial park, and the history with Koi and the Koi furniture. Jason, our new handler, is attending his 6-week training at Von Lick. It's been going very well. And at the beginning of September, our other handler, JD Ballou, went down with Canine Barry, and they participated in the Canine Olympics, and they received 2nd place in the narcotics detection. And this is an Olympics that is actually, it brings in people from all over the world. It's not just the United States. And so he's competing against a lot of individuals who did a great job. That is the chief's report. Any questions?
Kirschling make a motion to accept the chief's report and put it on file.
Second.
Any questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 9, discussion with possible action on the promotion of motor pump operator paramedic Ben Schultz to the position of lieutenant. Chief.
So like I said during my report, Lieutenant Schoberly has retired after 25 years with the Stevens Point Fire Department. With that, it leaves a vacancy as a lieutenant's position in our department. And per the labor agreement, we are looking to promote motor pump operator / paramedic Ben Schultz to the position of lieutenant within our department, with the approval of the PFC.
Very good. Questions, comments, motion?
I'll make a motion for the promotion of Ben Schultz to the position of lieutenant. Do we need to have a start date, or was it?
That'll be effective tomorrow, so October 4th.
October 4th.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Kirschling, second.
Okay.
Center.
Very good. No effect to the budget?
No effect to the budget because that position's already been budgeted for.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 10, discussion with possible action on the appointment of firefighter paramedic Dustin Fleischner to the position of motor pump operator paramedic, obviously to fill the position just vacated.
That is correct. So again, per the labor agreement, by seniority, Dustin Fleisner is the most senior firefighter paramedic in our department currently, and I would be looking to appoint, with the permission of the PFC, to the position of motor pump operator / paramedic.
As of tomorrow?
As of tomorrow.
I'd move to appoint firefighter Dustin Fleischner, is that how I say it? To the position of motor pump operator paramedic, effective tomorrow.
Kirschling, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 11, further discussion on overtime for the 40-hour chief within the fire department at a straight time rate. Chief.
Yes. So last month, we had a lengthy discussion on this, And I was asked if there was any questions throughout the month to please field those from the commissioners. And then to bring back also the last 2 months' schedule of basically one of our division chiefs who has currently or I shouldn't say currently, has requested overtime as of May of this last year, that we still have 10 hours pending per this. And so with that, I went ahead and put together his August schedule and his September schedule. As you will see, his normal shift is he works 0500 to 1500 Monday through Thursday. And then on top of his normal everyday inspections and expectations within the department, these are additional things that he's expected to be at. As you go through, you'll see fire prevention and bureau training. A lot of training right now because we just added an individual to the bureau, but still having to maintain and keep up with the fire inspections and code enforcement within the city. On average, when he goes out and does inspections, he inspects anywhere between 10 and 20 inspections a day. Again, and as you'll see moving through, even in September 7th and 8th, he did some all-day training in the bureau. Again, is not his normal work week. September 1st, he was in the bureau training. Again, is not part of his work week. And continues on. And what we're looking for is on top of these things that these chief officers, division chiefs, assistant chiefs, and the deputy fire marshal are doing, on top of those things, we're asking, or I'm asking, that when these people come in for emergent situations throughout the year and are called in for those additional things, boots on the grounds operationally, that they are somehow compensated for that. We have sat down with HR again, and it is allowed even for exempt positions to be paid if you are part of emergency services, fire, EMS, and law enforcement for those things. And we talked about time and a half or straight time. And again, straight time is allowed at this, and so that's what we are looking for those positions.
Is the city still undergoing a pay scale?
A city pay plan change?
Yeah.
Yes, they are currently. They are in the process of going through that right now. Chief Kuso and I were just in a meeting yesterday. I think we're getting close to the end of that, but there has not been any decisions made or any finals yet. I believe we were supposed to see paperwork today. Were you just checking?
I didn't.
And I didn't receive it either because we are actually supposed to be going through this information with our employees. So
Have they, is this being done by an outside service again?
yes, it is being done by Baker Tilly. That is who we have requested to do the analysis for our city pay plan.
Are they aware of this situation? Have you talked to them about this at all?
As department heads, we were not allowed to individually speak with Baker Tilly as a representative. We, all of our information had to be passed through HR and the comptroller's office, which we have done.
Did you add this information in there?
The overtime, no.
Okay, so they're not aware of this situation and are not, to your knowledge, making any compensation for this?
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Because this would be a separate thing, is what I'm being told by, this is a different form of compensation than the city pay plan itself. They're not looking at that aspect.
Okay.
The JDQ would indicate either that they're represented or exempt, no overtime.
Correct.
So what we're discussing would be part of that job description then.
It is part of the job description, yes.
Okay. And I wasn't here last month, so thank you, President Moore, for telling me about it. I was able to look online and review it. Is this the assistant chiefs and battalion chiefs, or is division chiefs, battalion chiefs included on this, or?
No, the battalion chiefs at this time receive overtime. They work a 56-hour work week, and they are on shift, and they are part of the operations.
Okay, so they're represented.
No, they are not.
Okay, and the
They're not.
division chiefs, when was that created?
The division chief position was created in 2018. The first one was created. The second one was created in 2020. I could go back and look, but I believe it was 2020. The second one was created. And then the deputy fire marshal position was created this year.
Okay.
So it's five employees, right, that within the fire department that would fall? 'Cause it's
Yes.
our assistant chiefs and then our.
It'd be the two
divisions
assistant
and
chiefs,
deputy.
the two division chiefs, and then the deputy fire marshal. It would affect 5 employees within the Stevens Point Fire Department.
And were division chiefs were they previous, is that a brand-new position, or was that a represented position initially, and then the job description modified became
No, those were.
exempt? That's the
those-
battalion chiefs we're talking about.
Yes, the battalion chief's position changed. The division chief's position was created.
Okay.
Chief, what were the 5 positions again?
There's actually 3 positions. It would be the assistant chief, it'd be the division chiefs, and it would be the deputy fire marshal. 5 people, 3 positions.
Okay. Does that cover the fire marshal also then?
The fire marshal is the division chief in the bureau.
Oh, okay.
And I did read up on that somewhat. I mean, it's pretty much an outlier that basically an exempt employee by principal definition is salaried without overtime.
Correct.
It's kind of the defining characteristic of it, and we're
Correct.
addressing, in this case, to remove that aspect of it, correct?
Yes.
Which has been done, but it's pretty much an outlier.
Right.
It's not far from a common practice.
I'm not sure if it's not common. We were just, a matter of fact, the mayor and I and one of my battalion chiefs were just over and recently visited La Crosse, and this discussion came up. The mayor had this
I
discussion.
saw that in the video last.
And La Crosse is moving forward with that as well at a straight time rate. There are others in their management staffs as well, in other departments around the state that are getting that too in that exempt position.
Okay.
Now, you are correct in saying that that is part of that is when you are in an exempt position, you're considered a salaried employee, and that's kind of the standard, yes. We actually had to go to went to a seminar and had everything explained to us. HR and I sat through that and had to talk about the differences between emergency services when it comes to fire, EMS, and law enforcement, and why even as exempt employees, they are entitled to overtime if the city so chooses to pay that.
Okay.
So I guess I have a question too. So because we oversee the fire and law enforcement, are we then opening this up too? Because, granted, we only have our 2 ACs with the police department, but if we do for one, do we do for the other then?
And I would assume that you would.
Well, it would go under section 3.04 of the policies that we just went through, and that identifies the assistant chiefs. Obviously, we have to get other language in there. So to move forward on this, we would have to, and we don't have an action that I see on the agenda today, but we would have to change that policy in place. And if we change that policy, it clearly identifies the assistant chiefs of the police department, which brings up my next question. Have you had any conversation with Chief Cousseau on that before we've had these discussions, seeing that that's going to be a direct impact on him.
Correct, and I have had conversations with the chief on it, and at this time, he didn't feel there was something that the police department would, that was something that the police department was interested in at this time.
Okay.
I don't know, Chief, if you're comfortable at this time or not, if you want to put this out for later, but what's the scenario like with your assistant chiefs? You know, if they're, you know, called on scene after hours, the next business day.
So when I talked to Chief Moody had a very good example of what his point was regarding this, and I understand why he put in for it. I have a different opinion of my own department. And I've talked with Assistant Chief Williams and Assistant Chief Rotier. I could not think of any time that they would be putting in for overtime or straight time. My belief is that if there's an emergency that occurs within the city, something like an officer-involved shooting, even a tragedy where a tornado comes through and stuff like that, my belief is that we're in positions that we took for a reason, and that is the time that they need us here, and that we'd respond no matter what. And then I would actually allow all of my admin to flex their time. So if they're here on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, they could take a Thursday, Friday off. I mean, budgets are tight. I don't know. I think a tough thing, and I've talked to JB about this, is writing the policy for it. How are you going to identify what things that they're going to get overtime or straight time for? I think that's tough, you know? And then is somebody going to take advantage of that? I don't know. The police department is not interested in that at this time. I'm a taxpayer as well. I live in the city. My brother's a firefighter. I just think that that's our responsibility, is to show up, and not, we're salaried, so we get the same amount every single time.
As I was going to jump in, I know the city has a policy in place for merit pay, and I did look at that. It's pretty, really don't know what that means, but it does indicate that there is a policy on that. And again, I know there's no action on this today. It's a conversation, and I'm going to be upfront. If there was, I'm not in favor of this, but I can certainly understand what you're discussing. And when we have these events that come up, and even what Chief Cousseau said, and if we wanted to move forward to possibly come up with a policy within the Police and Fire Commission on an annual merit pay at the end of the year. Budgets, like we said, are tight. We could look at that and see what's available, and I see that being more appropriate when we're talking about exempt positions than going in with overtime, whether that's straight pay or overtime pay, is to look at a merit pay and possibly make something a little more clear and the parameters more solidified within the Police and Fire Commission to look at that kind of a policy than to go down this avenue.
Or do we have the option also, as, you know, Bob had shared too, with, you know, comp time, that if somebody is putting in those extra hours after their, you know, normal shift, I mean, I guess it would be looking at, you know, the schedules, and it might not be the next day because of the fact that they actually have something that they have to be at. My preference would be if somebody's, you know, on scene all night long for something, that if the next day is available for them to not show up to work, right? I mean, because again, it's the health and well-being of all of our employees. Has that been looked at all, looking at the, you know, the comp time?
Yes, so we've looked at that as well. And we've looked at it from a lot of different angles. With this, and it's not, again, I'm not looking for, again, the chief is out of it. And if we need to reevaluate this and take our assistant chiefs out of this as well, and it's just for our division chiefs and our deputy fire marshal, we can look at that as well. But when we looked at it, we ran the numbers, we looked at who is involved and how they're involved. There are certain expectations when you move into these positions that we're expected to be at. I'm expected to be at Common Council, or Chief Gems is actually supposed to be expected to be at county EMS agency trainings or meetings in the evening. Assistant Chief Zavara is supposed to be at MABUS or chief meetings in the county. These people are expected to be at other events within the community or within Portage County or the city in the evenings or whenever. And they are still going to do those things. There are expectations. But on top of that, being called in the middle of the night for an emergent situation, not just picking up the phone and answering a question or there was a policy or procedure review or something had to be done, but we're boots on the ground on an actual event with whatever's going on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever it is. That's what this is about, because that next day or maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, they still don't have that opportunity. And I know we were using our division chief in the bureau here, or that's who initially submitted for this and what we were talking about. Here's an example of Monday through, he's supposed to only be there Monday through Thursday, and he's working some additional Fridays, or he's got additional stuff going on. Their question, and my question as well to everyone, is then when are they supposed to receive that time back? Because those aren't expectations of their positions. And we ran the numbers, and this last year between, with our new ISO numbers, we had to formulate and go through the vetting of all the processes. This occurred 97 times within a calendar year. That we're having chief officers back on the ground, boots on the ground, involved in an incident that's above and beyond where we initially are at.
Well, these are fairly new positions if we're looking at within the last 5 years they were created.
Yes, we ran and so the ISO numbers that we just went through the reevaluation for ISO, and so what we used was October of 21 till October of 22 is what we ran the numbers and the data off of, and then again started this process asking for this at the end of last year, and this has been an ongoing thing for several months on my end with the city itself.
So I guess my question then comes down is the job description changed that dramatically within this time frame? I mean, one of the positions is only a year old. Or is this kind of I'm assuming most of these duties were the expectation, or has it changed that dramatically?
No, it has changed. One of the things that has happened is we've changed our command staff and our incident command structures at fire scenes, working fires. Okay. We have also changed and went to a duty chief's position because, again, the staffing that the city is providing the community, we as a department don't feel is adequate. We have gone out and expressed this concern. We are looking at future objectives and how we're going to address this. But right now, we had to make a change. We've added MABUS. We've gotten very aggressive with MABUS to the point where every alarm level now we have 2 additional engines, an additional truck company, and an additional chief officer and additional specialty resource pieces that come in on every one of those calls. Those numbers are also up within the city and to the other agencies that we provide resources to. So this is ever evolving. And as we talked about, I think earlier today, I think I said the fire responses are up 15.4% just this year.
Right.
So, and how we're conducting business is changing as well. We're actually trying to provide 2 in, 2 out. We're trying to provide better communications by putting an interior chief inside the structures. We're also trying to alleviate communication issues on the fireground scenes. So there has been a lot of change within our department trying to move us to that next level.
So when you do and you're going through a pay plan readjustment as it is, you have GDQs for each one of these positions.
Yes.
I'm assuming if the jobs have changed, we do a reclassification on those. I know we've done that in the past at the PD.
Yes, so they had
So
to be updated and current, correct?
Right, and you can go to personnel, or in this case, are already doing the reevaluation. Why are we not waiting for that process to work out before we're going to an outlier situation of having overtime issued?
And this process was started prior to that, and that's what was part of the spur towards the city pay plan review. And I've continued to move forward with this, but at this point, if the commission would like to table till after the city pay plan's completed to revisit, or if there's any other questions, we can do that too. I was given the direction, and I've just been moving forward with that direction.
Bob, what did you want?
Jerry. Just two quick questions for you, Chief. One is, this also look into the future to hang on to people that we have? Because I'm sure you're in a competitive situation to get personnel. Would this type of thing help us do that?
I believe it would, and that's why I'm obviously here.
And is there other departments in the area that are already doing this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I know you said 97 events, right? That was the number that this would potentially would have applied to if we had this. Do you know the breakdown? Because I know now we've kind of just made discussions. Are we looking at the 5 individuals, assistant chief down, or are we going to remove the assistant chiefs from this? I'm curious of this 97, how many actually involved are division chiefs? Do you know that, or could you get that number?
I could pull that number and figure it out, but what I can tell you is I did run the numbers on it as far as the 97 events, how long of the hours were involved, the straight time that would be involved, and everything else that would be involved, and it ended up being between $10,000 and $15,000 annually would be the increase to provide all of those chiefs what they're requesting for those 97 incidences.
And I know with Sinner and being our fire marshal, and just looking at, you provided us a sample of his schedule, August and September. Don't have Anthony Ewing's in front of us. There's a lot of course, inspections, because that's, primary focus of his job. And we do have the deputy marshal also in place. I think I asked you this last month too, we do require our firefighters to also perform inspections, correct?
Correct.
So what you're saying is like the inspections that he has scheduled, which, that seems to be a lot of the makeup of this calendar, that those are inspections that cannot be handled. I guess where does that, you know what I mean, to what our firefighters do, to what they do, and then training, let's say if Ewing had training scheduled for, a Wednesday and a Tuesday, he's out on a fire scene all night.
So
I know we're very, very, training is of the utmost, and I do understand that within our department, but things like that, I'm just curious or there's always the potential somebody calls in sick, right? That they had training that they or something else happened, or
we have
that scenario.
So I guess I got to step back and look at our Bureau first. Our Bureau was created in December of 2018 under the understanding that really that position would be doing code enforcement, which is fire inspections. And at that time, the city was doing roughly about 1,100 fire inspections annually. It was about 1,150. And after that position was created, within the first year, inspections jumped about 300 to 400 annually, which will, roughly be almost 25 to 35%. Since that position has been created and that position's been in place for 5 years, you will see in our annual reports that we're up to about 1,800 to 1,900 fire inspections a year. So we've almost doubled our fire inspections that we're providing within the city. And we could probably double that as well if we actually enforce the codes to 2 inspections per year instead of 1, which the AHJ can write, which is myself, to do those inspections. The only ones we do 2 times a year are the ones that fall under certain medical expectations due to like our assisted livings or other things. So we've seen a huge increase there. Our public education as well has seen an increase, and then also our fire investigations, the expectations, and the training as well. Just like I talked about, we hosted and are now working with DCI and ATF on these things. So what happened was initially those lieutenants that were out on the line were doing those inspections. Between 250 and 300 inspections a year, each lieutenant was responsible for in the city. And it absorbed a lot of time with not only scheduling and then going out and doing the inspection, but the re-inspects and everything else. What we've done is we've tried to take that away from the line to give them the opportunity to actually train and maintain other programs within the department. That's why that position was created. Since creating that position, obviously we've realized that the more we've dug into things and the more involved we get, obviously there's more there to do. And that's why that second position was created. On the other side, the Division Chief of Training, that position right now puts that training out a month in advance. And now we have just recently changed, talking with our company officers in our last meeting, they're also putting out JPRs of each training. So whoever's doing the instructional aspects for the training, the instructor on that crew can maintain consistency across the 3 crews, no matter who the instructor is doing the instructing. Because what we have found is if we do ladder training, well, 3 different people teach ladders 3 different ways. So what we've included now is the JPRs for those instructors. And those instructors are paid through a stipend through the union contract as well. So that's what those people are doing then on that additional time. Every day now between 1:30 and 4:30 is doing that training daily. So with that, he's either facilitating that, prepping for the next training. He's always trying to be ahead of them and prepping for the next segment. So does that help?
Well, I think what I would like to see is, this is just a discussion right now, is taking the 97 events and actual giving a breakdown between our assistant chiefs, right? And then how it applied to our division chiefs, to get a better idea of that. Because I guess to me too, when you're in a management position, there is always, right, you're taking that role, pretty much, in the world of, there's extra things that you're going to be required to do outside of your normal work week. And then for the fact when I, just asked you too, what happens, like if it's a training that now you've told me it's a month out, and Ewing calls in and, he's sick, so now that training doesn't happen that day, right? Or does somebody else step in and do that training? Or to what does that look like? Because if you're looking at like allowing comp time, you know, because that kind of would be the same, it'd be an unexpected event that happened. So you know what I mean, you have to kind of adjust to that.
The training has to continue and go on, so there.
So let's just take that scenario where it's an unexpected.
So something
Illness and
happens,
event.
there would be an instructor that we pay a stipend to within the department on the line who would go out and do that training and follow those JPRs.
So do we, I mean, well, I suppose if they're on vacation, right, there's certain things, if you're saying that training needs to continue on, then we've implemented that.
Yes.
And as far as the 10,000 to 15,000, where in the budget are you looking to pull that from? Potentially, if that would be the figure that we, you know, would be compensating for.
And again, as I go through that, I would have to figure that out operationally.
Right.
But again, normally we come back operationally, even with salaries and overtime, we are coming back in the black at the end every year, even with some significant increases in the past few years. And we've had to cut other places operationally because of that as well. We can't afford to go in the red, so when that comes out, whether it's exempt or non-exempt, I still have to be within the budget. If we can look back and I can show that there's been years that we've been 300 to 400+% over in the overtime categories for our department, and we've had to make cuts other places operationally in order to support that.
Chief, when you went through and gave the information to Baker Tilly for their reevaluation of the pay scale, when did that happen and when were the job descriptions updated before that? Are they current?
Yes.
So basically, Baker Tilly should be essentially taking care of this issue with the updated job descriptions and with their new pay scale. My fear is we went through this very same procedure years ago when I was on city council. And within 3 months afterwards, people were changing job descriptions and the whole pay scale blew up as soon as we got it. It was outdated and all craziness broke through. I don't know that doing anything with this right now would be the right thing to do other than wait and see what Baker Tilly comes back with. I know that when we went through the process of creating these positions, we had a job description and we all made our best guess, crystal ball guesses on whether the pay would be correct for those positions at that time. And that's the best that you can do. And I understand what Commissioner Morozek is saying is that people that are in management kind of have an understanding that they are going to have some different sacrifices that they're going to make. You're very well aware of it now, I'm sure, taking the position of chief. So to move forward this at this time, the way I feel about it is it's a little premature, and I understand this process has been long, and the Baker Tilly thing came up after this was started, to my understanding, and my comfort level would be to wait and see what they have to say before we would do anything with this at this time, because money is tight, and we need to understand where the city's at with all of that. And maybe they'll come back with one that would take care of all of this and it'd be great for the next 5 years. We can all hope. I don't know. But that's kind of the way I feel about it right now.
Okay.
And the last question I have is just so I understand this too. The salary positions within the fire department, So if there's doctor's appointments, if there's things that you need to leave for, being part of, a salary position, is it my understanding that those hours are not required to be made up? That's kind of one of those also benefits, and correct me if I'm wrong with that.
Technically, yes. Yes, they, that is the understanding the city has.
So that you do not have to make up the time, like if you need to leave for an appointment, and
As
why-
part of the management staff, that's what I was explained, yes.
Okay, so and I know there's a little bit more flexibility once you get into those, salary positions, that if you do need to, take off early for some family thing or appointments, whereas if you're an hourly employee who's punching the clock, you're punching out for those. So I just wanted to make sure that was my correct understanding with that.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Ostrowski, you have anything to add to this discussion?
No, I just find it interesting. I can see both sides of the issue. I'm not just ready to make a decision at it this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any other comments about this? No? Chief, anything final to say? No?
Nope.
Okay, very
be good.
good. Then we are moving on to agenda item number 12. We are adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.